Well, everybody's heard about the bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird.
Grown men watch this shit?
A podcast about indie wrestling.
Bird is a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner, well, a bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner.
All right, welcome to
the second edition of... I'm going to let you do it this time, buddy.
You don't want to do it? I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah, do it. Go for it.
Grown men watch this shit?
There you go. There you go. Hey, actually, have I asked you to do an American accent at all? Like, I know I probably brutalized the Australian accent to you before, but I don't think I've had you do the American. Let's hear it.
Oh, because I love American versions of the Australian accent. They sound amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
bet.
a lot of other Australians maybe don't enjoy them as much as I do. However, all right. So it's not even going to be that exciting, really.
Who cares? It's for me.
Grown men watch this shit? A
Damn, that was pretty
podcast
quick.
about indie wrestling.
You nailed it. I love it.
Oh,
Yes, this
thank
is
you.
Grown Men Watch This Shit, everybody. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back, guys. Episode dose. Yeah, for everyone that was excited enough and curious enough to listen to the first go around the tree, thank you for tuning in. We super appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate y'all joining in on the dumbness, which apparently is a thing.
Hashtag dumbness. Yeah, thanks, guys. Me and Chris, again, just met randomly at a wrestling show, decided to randomly do a wrestling show. So on the podcast world. And I really do appreciate for you bringing me along, buddy.
Oh, no, thank you, sir. No, just really stoked to be doing it. Had a lot of fun on the first show. And yeah, it's actually cool that people, for some reason, listened. I mean, yourself, Jeremy, we were talking about before the first show, you know, if not a single person listens to this and it's just an echo chamber, we'd be totally okay with that because we have fun talking about wrestling, shockingly.
100%. And we did get some good feedback. It was appreciated by all you who actually not only listened, but took time to let us know how you felt about the show. And yeah, when you do a podcast, you very rarely know how it's being received immediately. There's no instant gratification. So you kind of have to sit back and wait for it to come in. And we did feel it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, you know?
For sure. And before we got started today, you did mention possibly doing a little bit of a reintroduction of who we are as individuals. So
I think that'd be thanks, man. I think that'd be a good idea. Last time we just kind of got going, jumped right into it. And I think that was good. It set a good tone for the rambling odyssey that is this show. But I thought it'd be good to start this show. You know, giving a not so formal introduction to I and overall what we're looking to do with this show now that we're into episode dose. So I mean, first of all, myself, Chris, on the Instagram and the Twitter, Chris Things. I actually have, you know, obviously loved wrestling for bloody forever. Being a little Aussie boy who did not get enough American pro wrestling for his tastes until, I don't know, it got big on TV in like 99 when it got cool everywhere, I guess. But just loved it ever since. I was somewhat involved in the embarrassing local indie scene that we have over here. In a previous life, I may have been known as the despicable Wild Joe Hayes. You know, all about bleeding all over the place, throwing chairs at fans and saying things that I probably shouldn't have said and got yelled at by various promoters. But it was a fun time. It was a fun time.
I can't even imagine, dude. I only know the nice Chris Bryan. Whew! I got to see some of that. You got any footage of that, buddy?
Oh, maybe one day. We'll see.
All right. Carry on.
Yeah, no, but all in all, you know, it's fun, and you look back at it, and to me, the best part was not necessarily the wrestling, but the people that you meet, and that continues onto this show, and just meeting everybody, and like I was saying last time, how much fun that is, and all the great people that you get to meet. But I met some of the best friends that I ever have made the acquaintance of in my life through wrestling, and a lot of those guys are still some of my best friends to this day. So I in no way regret it, despite the ridiculous amount of concussions that I suffered, which led to my early wrestling career demise. But no, I'm just happy to chat about it, to make wrestling related art, and to do a show like this, man. So that's a little about me. How about yourself, Mr. Vanderbeek?
All right. As Chris has alluded to, I am Jeremy, but also sometimes known as James Vanderbeek due to my well-received, ironically and crazily enough, Twitter handle. I've been a lifetime wrestling fan as well. Grew up on it as a kid, kind of fell off for a bit and then got back into it probably right before the Attitude Era really picked up. I became a rampant and valid member of the WWE universe for the longest time, and then eventually, again, wrestling kind of, you get bored, you ebbs and flows, and then I got into Ring of Honor, became obsessed with that, and then I realized the connection of the indie universe. The indie wrestling world was so vast, and it was quite a surprise to me. I didn't even know there was local wrestling companies at all. No idea. And when I found this out, I really started getting involved in that to a point where I started offering up my artistic talents. Like Chris, I also am an artist and do other things outside of wrestling themed art, but a lot of designs for wrestlers and both independent and professional wrestlers alike, and kind of developed that and made me even more of a passionate fan, making me more obsessed with wrestling. And enough so that I want to sit and talk about it for an additional hour and record it and share it with other people. So fucking professional wrestling, man.
Professional wrestling. We are grown men, and we watch this shit.
Yes, sir. And somebody be looking at the title and say, well, what is that supposed to mean? Well, it's not any disparage on our favorite pastime. It's sometimes the attitude that other people may have. And we're like, hey, man, you're taking it way more seriously than we are. We're just here to enjoy a good program, enjoy some wrestling. It's an escapism. It's nothing to be taken up super, super serious. So, yeah, grown men watch this shit. Hell yeah, we do.
Hell yeah, we do. Yeah, you don't need to take it too serious. And I think as well, people want to put it down or whatever, but just enjoy it for what it is. That's what I do. Go into anything and just enjoy it for what it's meant to be. It's maybe not changing the world, but in some ways it is. I mean, there's a lot of stories about different independent or semi-independent companies over the years that have completely changed the face of mainstream wrestling, because like indie wrestling, to me, it's the exciting place where all this stuff happens, where like the new things are born, where like these chants that like in a lot of ways I cringe over when I see them these days, but when they were first happening, like in a little bingo hall or Rexplex or whatnot, or a little armory, for the first time, that shit's exciting, and it's fresh, and seeing the different styles of wrestling coming out. I just get so much more of a kick out of watching the bush leagues of wrestling, if you will, more so than the mainstream product, and that's why I want to do this show, because I'm excited about it.
And then also the history of wrestling, like you said about changing things, it literally has changed the world. Sputnik Monroe back in the day helped desegregate parts of the South by refusing to wrestle without allowing the colored, as they were saying back then, black people into the building. And, he changed the world. It's a heel.
Yeah, he was like a heel, but he was way over with that demographic. And once they actually did let them into the building, they were only allowed in the top tier area of the building. And in a lot of ways, he maybe gets potentially a bit more credit than he deserves, because at the end of the day, he was, so all these fans that were coming to see him, but only so many could fit in that top area. So he would make a lot more money if those black fans were allowed in the lower bowl as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So while, I'm sure he was a great guy in a lot of ways, but in the same time, money talks, as it always has for wrestling. But yeah, it's a great example of how something in wrestling can change the greater world.
Yeah, indeed. Even if it is based off some guy wanting to put a little bit more extra pocket change in his, in his wallet, something to take home to mama. I don't know. I hate to bring up that, the obvious side of that particular thing, but just think about it. He at least attempted to do something great with. Who cares? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
just
pretty
kidding.
much all the good things in the history of the world. While people may want to say that they were, just done for the right reasons, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's always something else.
Yes,
But
sir.
anyway,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about something that probably the biggest news in the world of independent wrestling as of recently is the big All-In show and
Oh
the very
man.
quick sellout. A lot of people were skeptical that these guys could pull this off. I, for one, was not one of those people. There was rampant speculation by independent wrestling fans and journalists as well in the world of wrestling whether they could get this done. But I think if anything that the Young Bucks and Cody have proven in the last couple of years is how good they are at marketing and how viable of talents they are. I mean, they draw money, son.
Sure do. Man, I was so excited when I saw that sellout. I was actually on there, even though I had no intention of going to the show, as we discussed last time. But I was on it, the ticket site, just to see how the sales were going, because I was like real scared for them and hopeful for them. I mean, it's kind of cool because we spoke about it a bit last time, and that was before the tickets went on sale, so people could kind of see what our expectations were, and I think we were both relatively positive, but there's still being a question mark there. And man, ridiculous! Under half an hour, sold 10,000 tickets.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It surpassed, like, obviously our expectations. I think the whole wrestling media, a lot of people were expecting them to be able to do that 10,000, but in no way in like half an hour, especially given the New Japan show in San Francisco having a bit of a tepid start. I mean, I still don't think they've sold half that many tickets for the upcoming San Francisco show. But yeah, it's so nuts. And I was listening to some of the interview stuff that Cody was doing afterwards, and he was saying about how just insanely surprised they were as well. He was talking about how he was a bit more trepidatious with his expectations than some of the other guys were, but even the more bullish expectations for it were nothing like that. So I think it's amazing, and it's a credit to exactly where we are in terms of indie wrestling in the year 2018. I mean, if you were talking about doing this in like the mid or early 2000s, people would have laughed at you. I mean, even the coolest indie wrestling going back then, I'd say probably, ROH was real strong. Like 2003 to 2007 was probably their real glory period. Their biggest crowd they did back then was like 2,000 people. For them, filling up the Hammerstein was a big fucking deal at the time, because it would like raise them to the level of legitimacy of like ECW. But yeah, you look at that now, like 10,000 people, insane. I was reading some of the history stuff about it to try to work out when was the last time this happened in wrestling, like a company without TV just actually doing it on themselves without like a big backer or whatever. This is unprecedented. The closest thing that I can find that was somewhat comparative was, I don't know if you heard about Jacques Rougeau's shows that he used to do in up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did a crowd of like 10 or 12,000 in the early 2000s. But that was a bit different, rather than necessarily selling tickets. A lot of it, from what I've read, was based off of working with big companies, selling a sponsorship to the company, and then they get all their employees to go to it for free, things like that. But still impressive as hell. And a lot of that was just his students, and one of our favorite indie wrestlers, Kevin Steen, was actually on that show.
Very beautiful. Yeah,
as luck
actually,
would have it.
the most surprised, I definitely am not surprised it sold out. Definitely surprised at the quick time it did so. Mostly one of the main reasons is because while the card is filled with like talented people, it's not like no big surprises have been announced, if there's anything really
No,
scheduled.
I mean the
Outside of
closest. I was going
is
to
the
say the
CM Punk thing.
closest thing, yeah, was the fact that they announced CM Punk for a signing before it or that week or whatever, which I don't know if it might have got people's earbuds tingling a little bit, like, oh, is this maybe a thing where we could possibly have an expectation of Punk being on there? But in no way was it actually directly teased.
No, and then the other guy that's like the big star power is Okada, of course, and I mean, I would love to see Okada, but it's not like necessarily like he is the selling point of an entire show by any means. So it's tremendous that the wrestling fans, I believe, almost like they are so passionate about this project that these guys that they're passionate for, they're just in like all in, so to speak, 100% backing this thing just because they want them to succeed, because the opportunity is for other things to be successful because of this. It just shows that other people could possibly go out there and maybe not do a show run of this size, but something, rather substantial, much more than, you see the normal 500 seat arena for a lot of the indie product.
Yeah, and I mean, for the last couple of years, we've been seeing that off of the back of the Bucks and Cody to a large extent, of a lot of those crowds where previously it was 3 to 5 to 700 maybe. Those crowds going up to like 1,500. Stuff like Northeast Wrestling, they've been doing good crowds of like 2,000 or more for quite a few years now. And yeah, a lot of your other ones all around, like the whole overall indie environment is a lot healthier than it's really like ever been, and it's really cool to see. And this is kind of like just the icing on the cake of that statement of just like, holy shit, this is a different world now. And I mean, who knows? All in 2. I mean, you can't do that the first time and then not go on to do it a second time.
Yeah, especially with the fact that it's clearly a viable product. Like, people are certainly interested. So as long as the show translates well and everything's copacetic, I couldn't see them not venturing and trying this again. And
for real,
I got hats off to those guys, because taking a chance on yourself, especially when, for the most part, these things don't work out too well, when someone tries to back themselves on a project. And
I mean, there's a rule. There's a rule in wrestling where you don't be a mark for yourself. You don't put your own money into a show. I mean, Cody actually mentioned that was one of his dad's rules. And because I don't know if you remember when Dusty was promoting, it was like Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling in the early 2000s. And they never did anything too crazy. I think his biggest crowd was maybe the 1,500 kind of capacity, and then it went down pretty fast. But yeah, his big thing where he said my dad taught me a couple of things. One, never put your own money in this kind of stuff. 2, main event guys wear trunks. Actually like that second one. It's not really relevant, but anyway.
No, I do. A lot of guys, if you notice in wrestling, a lot of guys come to that realization. So,
yeah, for real. But yeah, I mean, they did all in. It's not just a name. They did that. They put their own butts on the line. And I mean, Cody's been doing that since he left the WWE, like just betting on himself. Everyone told him it was a mistake. What are you doing, man? Why are you leaving this great gig that you've got to go out onto the indies? It'll be terrible. And then look what's happened since. He is a main event player if I ever saw one. I didn't necessarily see it myself straight away. I may have been one of those people early on that were like, Cody going out with his WWE style matches on the indies and in Japan. This isn't going over too well. But then he really changed gears, and I think it was maybe the more time that he spent in ROH and got a little bit more acclimated with the indie style. My favorite thing that he's done was that really great match that he had at Wrestle Kingdom with Kota Ibushi, and it was just a really exciting match. But I think the thing that pushed it all over the top in terms of him becoming a main event superstar was the bleached hair. I think that screams superstar. As soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, this guy.
he got hackneyed for not having a ton of personality before the Stardust thing, and I think he showed that he, as far as character work, he had that available in spades, personality and character work, and I think he's developed this almost like a video game supervillain type character that he is now, and it's the ring that he wears that he makes people kiss really puts that shit over the top, and 100% the bleach blonde hair, the ode to his father, it's like he put it all together with that. It's pretty tremendous, the transformation you see from the guy who was in Evolution to what he is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think
or not Evolution,
Brandy,
I apologize. What was Cody's group? Or
I don't remember. The
Legacy,
one with Randy.
Legacy.
Yeah.
Legacy, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Brandy being part of the presentation as well really adds to things. And
yep.
I mean, that ROH show that we were at over WrestleMania weekend was like, Cody was the most hated man I have ever seen at a wrestling show live, full stop. Like, I've never seen someone get that kind of visceral hatred. Probably going back to like watching, territory wrestling tapes where people were actually wanting to shank a motherfucker.
Oh my god, yeah, dude, 100% great heel work. Yeah, Cody, can't say enough good things about Cody.
Yeah, so good. So happy for the dude in this show. I'm excited about it now. I guess we're just gonna wait and see as the match announcements start happening, which I think is going to be very exciting. It's a very interesting looking card, and I think they have the potential for doing some really unique matchups that haven't been done before. And given a lot of the ROH guys on the show who normally can't actually work home side in the States on non-ROH shows, I think due to most of those contracts, we'll be able to get to see those guys mix it up with some of the rest of this talent. Seeing Okada maybe have a big time singles match with someone that we might not have expected before. I mean, personal little hope on that for me. I really want to see Okada and PCO. I think that'd be amazing. I think we may not be seeing that, but I have never wanted to see an Okada match more than that.
Wait, what? That would be so incredible. PCO, the living legend.
In every way. I love PCO. Have you been on these PCO hype videos he's been releasing the last couple of weeks?
I've been watching them from time to time because they get pretty viral.
Oh,
he's a fucking psycho, dude. It's awesome.
Oh man, he's got like the electric battery clamps for the car, like on his friggin' nipples, while he's lifting these ridiculous weights and getting screamed at
with a kendo stick or some shit.
Yeah. The last one,
ripping cards with his teeth.
Yeah, the cards. Oh my gosh. That guy is insane, and I'm so excited that he is like one of the most talked about indie acts of 2018. Fuck yeah, PCO.
Craziest resurgence, and so random but so great.
Yeah, so good.
All right. Good. Well, we're talking about people going places and taking chances on themselves. Let's talk about the Big Progress Tour, which I, for one, am very excited about it. Very selfishly, of course.
I'm excited about it too. It's a pretty big endeavor, and yeah, definitely, I think Jim Smallman has put in a lot. He's going all in to bring back to that one on this tour. I mean, they're doing what is it, Seattle? They're doing where else have they got booked in?
First date is on the 4th. They got New York. Then we got Boston on the 5th. Then up here in Seattle on the 9th, teaming up with local indie company Defy Wrestling. Shout outs.
Yeah, and then, the rest are teaming up with Gabe and Evolve, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I that kind of bums me out that we didn't get an Evolve event too. I mean, I love Defy, but come on, Evolve up here as well. But I can't complain. I'm getting progress. Yeah. And then to close it out, they've got Chicago on the 11th and Detroit on the 12th. So these guys are going to be knackered, as they say, become Detroit, man. They're going to be, But anyway, that's going to be tremendous, man.
Just what an endeavor, like an indie company from the UK going on like a full-scale American tour like that. I mean, talk about unprecedented. When does that happen? Even the coolest companies. Yeah, 2018 is the year. This ridiculous year. But very cool. And
I did hear, of course, I had to chat up Jim, who does follow me on Twitter, putting over name drop. But anyway, ask about maybe if they're doing personalized shirts for each of the shows, and it does sound like they are. So looking forward to grab that sweet Seattle Progress shirt. That's gonna be fucking dope.
Oh, I mean, Progress has had really sweet shirt designs with their sort of punk rock motif and doing like band spin-offs and things like that for a long time.
100%.
I remember like when I started following Progress back when they were, do you recall back in their days when they were in the garage, or as you posh Americans would say, garage?
I do remember the garage.
So before they moved
follow
into
them.
the Electric Ballroom, I think is their main home base, is it?
That is correct. That is
Yeah.
correct. But yeah, man, tremendous and insane. Like, the most random thing I saw pop up on Twitter when I see this thing for Progress the US tour, and you know, normally you pop for wrestling spots, but I popped for a potential show and got really excited because they didn't announce any dates, but as soon as I saw Seattle on there, and I figured Defy would be working in conjunction with them because Defy is really hot right now. But
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of similarities between the two companies as well in terms of their overall approach, and just what's really working well right now, because I think both companies are really on a high.
Yep. Not anything super overproduced, kind of definitely still has a polished look, but nothing where you're like trying to be overly flashy with the show itself. They're just here to present the wrestling on its own canvas.
It's funny, I mean, from the first time I watched Progress and the first time I watched Defy, I actually noticed something of those two companies in terms of just the way that the matches are filmed. Both have a very similarity or similar approach that you don't see anywhere else of just like I don't know, it's like I don't know in terms of specifics, but those sort of artful camera work, if you're picking up what I'm putting down there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you could just point the camera at the action and, just shoot what you're fucking looking at. But yeah, they definitely try to capture a feeling with the way they're shooting it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for a long time, indie wrestling, to be honest, has not had the best camera work. You go back and watch some of those ROH shows from the Rexplex and stuff. Holy shit, it's rough.
Yeah, especially because like the cameramen, like they didn't do like color correction for the camera, so each shot like it flipped from the main camera to the side camera, and everything goes from like a greenish hue to a yellow hue. And you're like, all right, but this is still kick-ass wrestling. I gotta do what I gotta do. But holy crap, that quality was horrendous.
Oh man, yeah, it's.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
No, it was all like that. Like you go back and watch like ICW, like from New York back up there, or like Jersey All Pro, or like any of those early indies that were cool back then, with your Amazing Reds and Low Keys and Jerry Lynn, Christopher Daniels, all that kind of era. And yeah, you're gonna see a shit ton of awesome wrestling, but you're gonna not have the nice polished production values that we've come to expect in the last couple of years.
By no means.
But yeah, so cool. I mean, it's that Progress tour is cool in a lot of ways. I mean, they've dipped their toe into the American market before. I know they had that show up in New York where they did a sellout house at that venue where there was like people passing out because it was so hot. Do you remember the stories coming out of that one? And then the ROH. I mean, yeah, literally. And the Evolve show that was before it didn't do like half the crowd of the Progress show, which is like, that's interesting.
Yeah, that became a big deal. Everyone was complaining about the responsibility of the people who are running the show, about overbooking the place. So like, oh yeah, that was such a fucking rigmarole. But hopefully, learning from previous mistakes, things will go smoothly on this upcoming tour.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I wonder what kind of talent list we're going to be getting. Obviously, we'd expect a certain amount of authentic UK talent, and mixing it up with some of the top indie names back home. You'd definitely be thinking that Mr. Swerve himself, Shane Strickland, would be getting a bit of a spotlight on those Seattle shows and hopefully some of the other ones in terms of like high-profile matches. Man, I love me some Shane Strickland, hey.
Dude, the show that you actually asked me to take a look at, the Rev Pro show, that match was fucking great. What a show opener, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's how to fucking do it. But I mean Shane Strickland's been doing a lot of good stuff for like a long time. I mean going back to I'm personally a big Lucha Underground fan.
Yeah,
And that was probably the first time I think a lot of people saw him under his Lucha Underground gimmick. What was that name
kill
again?
shot,
Killshot,
kill.
that's it.
Yeah,
The former army vet. But then yeah, he's really been like the ace of Defy.
now hang
You
on one
know,
second. I
hmm?
want to take. Sorry to be pedantic, but what do you mean by former army vet? Wouldn't he be always be a vet?
Technically,
I'm just
I
fucking with
think you may have a point.
you. I'm just fucking with you.
No, I'm
But
not a vet anymore. Not a vet.
yeah,
Past
I
life.
gave it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, him and Adam Brooks, who wasn't someone I was terribly familiar with, but I did catch him down in New Orleans, and I was really quite impressed.
Was that on the
Yeah,
Rev
that was
Pro show in New
I
Orleans?
believe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, it was because the same one with Cobb and Suzuki.
Mm. And that was a badass show.
Oh
Like
fuck.
it gotten lost in all of the other ridiculousness that we saw. But I mean, in terms of just old killer, no filler, like that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, and some good fun stuff too that was going on, like Will Ospreay, even though he's a fucking professional, doing some fucking comedy as far as in the match he was in, so it was really fun.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then that main event, that awesome Zack Sabre Jr. Tomohiro Ishii match for the Rev Pro title, which was actually a title change. And we actually got to see Ishii finally end the dastardly title run of Mr. ZSJ, because I actually went back and did a bit of homework on the Rev Pro stuff. I wanted to be as prepared as possible for our much loved listeners at home in the earbuds. And yeah, he has had such an awesome run in Rev Pro since like I started it from their Global Wars shows, which were in like October, November of last year. On night 2 of that, he had a really sick match against Ospreay. Probably one of the best UK matches I've seen. Stop. So good. And then he's just had some amazing title defenses all the way through up till that fateful weekend in New Orleans. I mean, just off the top of my head, there was also a really cool match on one of their smaller shows at the Cockpit that he had with Martin Stone, who is just signed recently to WWE, returning to his previous guise of Danny Burch, I believe. Also, like really good title defense against Travis Banks. Travis Banks, holy shit, he's another guy, New Zealander who I think the UK fans know how fucking good this dude is, and I think a lot of the American fans are finding out that right about now. So I'm thinking he's definitely going to be a big part of that Progress tour.
Yeah, man, he really,
so much
as
good
far
stuff.
as his appearance on PWG really fucking impressed me. The Kiwi buzzsaw, he's badass, dude, and he's got that look, even though he's a smaller guy, that you still wouldn't want to fuck with him. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, dude, jacked as old fuck, and he can throw some mean kicks.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, going on like Zack Sabre, another awesome match that he had with Trent Seven, who I'm sure a lot of our fans are pretty familiar with from his NXT work and the Mustache Mountain stuff. Yeah, just a really sick run, and was just so hated. Like for the first time on that PWG show that we were at last year, that was the first time I'd seen like an American crowd of just that. Again, not quite Cody level, but definitely a visceral hate from a good amount of those fans for Mr. Zack Sabre Jr. And knowing him as the very nice young man that he is, I'm like, where's this hate coming from? But he's got such a great heel persona going on right now with the Suzuki Gun stuff and all that. Like, dude is awesome. In addition to being a great worker, he has an awesome just vibe about his character that I feel is like it's got a reality to it, and he's very quick-witted in his, like, he'll get little shit calls from the crowd or whatever, and he'll be like right on him. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and having, like you said, Suzuki Gun, having him standing next to Minoru Suzuki only like helps build the vibe. I get he probably learns, intimidation techniques from the murder grandpa. What a great combination, man. Honestly, seeing them as a show we were talking about against Travis Banks and Chris Brooks, that was a fucking great match, dude. And seeing Chris Brooks go up against Minoru Suzuki was fucking hilarious, but also pretty fucking tremendous.
Oh,
That guy's
yeah.
so skinny, dude. He's so skinny.
Yeah. Brooks was another guy that in watching this Rev Pro show, I didn't know too much about Chris Brooks other than he was the tag partner of Travis Banks in CCK. But I didn't really know too much about him, but I just heard great things. Dude is sick. He is really tall, lanky guy, but athletic and can do some really cool stuff. On one of those cockpit shows, I saw an awesome match with him against Pete Dunne. That was just very hard hitting. I think Brooks got busted open, was just like bleeding all over the place, and Pete Dunne was just his vicious, violent best. But yeah, Chris Brooks is a guy that people should be switching on to. He's got something, and his tag team with Travis Banks has got some very fun to watch. Very fun to watch.
Agreed. Yeah, and one of the main reasons we were watching that show is I guess the first time we could do this. Friends of the show, Aussie Open, were on the show, and holy crap, that match with them with the Chosen Bros was fucking great. And forget me if I don't remember right, they went over in this one, huh?
They sure as heck did. Yeah,
that was
man.
Fucking great.
Aussie Open. So we've got my good friend, again, not to name drop too much. But
No, we do that stuff on the
Davis,
show. We get over the top with the name drops and everything. We put ourselves over for days, pal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, brother. Yeah. No. So Mark Davis has been having a great run in the UK since he moved over to the UK full time about a year ago. It was actually a year to the day a couple of weeks back. Did a little post about it. But yeah, he took a big gamble and went over there just based off of having a sweet ass match with Marty in Melbourne City Wrestling, and Marty telling him, "Hey, come over, I'll take care of you, brother." And he's worked from like the bottom. He teamed up with this other very talented Australian, Kyle Fletcher, who quite another skinny tall man, but he can do some awesome shit as well. And yeah, they just had a heck of a run. They really picked up steam towards the end of last year. Had a really great breakout match against CCK, Travis Banks and Chris Brooks. And then have just been doing good things on top of good things ever since, to where one of the earlier big Rev Pro York Hall shows this year, they got put in a really awesome spotlight position where they were wrestling none other than Los Ingobernables de Japón, the ace tag team of that group in Evil and Sonata. And that was a big time match for them, and that went really, really fucking well. You could see that the crowd just looked at them in a different way during that match and after, dueling chants, all that kind of stuff. And then, based off the success of that, going into this match where they're working probably the two top indie guys, to me at least, in the world right now, in Matt Riddle and Jeff Cobb, the Chosen Bros, and that match was just so damn good. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the entire match, and I fucking love Mark's finish. The pile driver. He grabs the motherfucker by the ankles and just pulls him up to his chest really quick, and it looks like there's no way it could possibly be safe, but it has to be. But yeah, it's fucking amazing, dude. That was
he's
really cool.
Great. Even going back to his Aussie days, his finish originally was like the Chuck Taylor gimmick, the Awful Waffle, and then he sort of converted into his own little spin on that with the current presentation where he just yanks a motherfucker up and then drops them down on their head. But yeah, the official name of that move now is an amazing one. Probably my favorite name of a finisher going today. Close your eyes and count to fuck.
I caught that when they said it, but oh my god, yes, you're right. That's fucking amazing.
There's a
Hell
shirt and
yes.
everything that you can buy at home, listeners.
All right. So yeah, check out the Aussie Open merchandise and get that shirt.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, great match there. I particularly loved the big man spots between Davis and our boy Jeff Cobb. Just two big boys mixing it up. They've got a great little chant in the UK wrestling of when there's two big motherfuckers in there. It's just a chant of big lads wrestling, which I kind of love.
That's great.
Big lads wrestling. just so British, so good. They're great
love
for
all that
so
shit
many of
that's
those
bleeding.
wacky chants. Hey,
Yeah, exactly. I love that shit's bleeding over. Honestly, it's fucking great. As long as all the Americans don't start singing all the time, I'm cool with you guys doing that because you could, or the UK guys, you could hear the accent through the singing, and it's that what makes it so delightful to me.
yeah. I mean, if the Americans are going to do it, can they at least put on a shitty British accent for the chant?
Give it
That's
a
all
shot,
I ask.
guys.
Yeah.
I mean, come on,
commit.
Timothy Thatcher did it.
Yeah.
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 That's actually always been trippy to me. Timothy Thatcher, the American who worked as a British guy, like people
I
have
thought he
always
actually
worked...
came from the UK before, like maybe when he was a bit younger before moving to California.
Is that the case?
I assumed. I mean, I just based off of his accent. I'm hoping it's not a guy that's just doing a fake accent. I'd be very disappointed.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't do the British accent anymore. I guess that was his deal for quite a while.
I mean, you can still hear it a little bit. I don't know. I feel like talking about this, we should know. I'm gonna Google.
Let's do it.
This is what we do for our fans. Live research.
Live Googling. Live Googling. And, some of us are better at Googling than others, and it's really a show like ours that shows you how quick something can be Googled. Is it there now?
It is, but I mean, you just put over my Googling abilities and I've come to his Wikipedia, because, you learn everything from Wikipedia. And
He's
it says
wicked good at Wikipedia.
Nothing about him, his UK roots, if there
Yeah,
are.
dude, you got worked.
Which maybe that is echoing your point.
I just find it interesting that out of any nationality to choose, you choose something very, very... It's like, all right, up here there's a kid, I forget his name, I think Lance Pearson. He's American, but he works a Canadian gimmick. But his gimmick isn't that he's Canadian. Like, he isn't like overly Canadian, wearing plaid or denim all the time. He's not drinking maple syrup. He's just Canadian. I just think it's kind of weird to just pick a random country to represent when you're... I don't know. Wrestling, they do it all the time, but why is it so weird to be just another random white guy?
Yeah, exactly. Strange.
Sorry about the rambling.
No, that's what we're all about. Yeah, I'm onto the Reddit page now that is titled, "So, is Timothy Thatcher actually British?"
Yes. See, it's so awesome.
I'm still yet to see a resolution of this. Everyone's just like, maybe, we think so. I don't know. It says he's from Rampton, England, which is a very small and specific place to be billed from. If you don't happen to be from there, which maybe would give credence to him being from there. Maybe he moved over when he was like 4. I don't know. We need to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, is Timothy Thatcher a fake Brit? Who knows?
Yeah,
Timothy knows for sure.
That controversy.
Well, hey, on the show we were just talking about the Rev Pro show. Want to get your take on Yeehide? I'm sure you've seen it before, but Yeehide, excuse me.
Dude is.
What do you think about this guy?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I was a big fan of his in Evolve. Going back the last couple of years, I was a big fan of Catch Point. And yeah, I think dude is crazy talented. He's since departed from Evolve. But yeah, I think he's this is his chance to be breaking out. And I think he did a great job in that match in particular. Very exciting dude, so smooth. He reminds me a lot of, you seen Jonathan Gresham much before?
Yep. They both have really unique styles. Not, they don't work similar to each other per se, but they definitely have really unique grappling styles. Fred with
Yeah,
all the
like a real
stomps and stuff.
sweet, smooth,
Yep.
like grappling, legit technical kind of style where you can tell there's a legit background kind of going on there. Like there's a difference that I think is coming out in current indie wrestling with how in vogue it is to be doing that legit sort of catch style. Timothy Thatcher's a great example of it, where it's separating the guys who actually have a legit background or current training or whatnot, and the guys that do the fake technical wrestler type of thing. And it's kind of really exciting to watch. I love it. I'm all
Agreed.
about that shoot style kind of thing, so I think it's very cool. But yeah,
Especially
High,
placed on the
talented.
card right. Especially if
Yeah.
they place it on the card right, like after balancing a good wrestling card, especially with how big and oversaturated the market is. You need to like really have the ebbs and flows, and having a good grappling match after a really really exciting match, the fans kind of need it sometimes. And honestly, if they can get into it, in my opinion anyway, if the fans can get into it, like that Matt Riddle show was testing, I think the audience is there. But yeah, sometimes the American wrestling audience a lot of times gets bored. Like, have you noticed? You're mentioning the Zack Sabre hate earlier. Some of that hate is starting to seem like not just against his heel, like actually against him as a wrestler.
That was what I felt to start with before his sort of heel work came up to match it. It was almost like people were hating him because they hate that style and because they hate the way he looks.
Yeah.
As weird and mean as that sounds. Like in PWG, I noticed it quite a bit to where before he was like really playing up this heel dickhead thing, he just get a lot of hate and like a lot of it, sometimes you get like the people with the boring chants or whatever, and then they get shutted down or whatever. But it's interesting in that there are a lot of American fans of wrestling in quotation marks who are not really fans of wrestling. And I think that's an interesting discussion point. And I don't know.
No, you're 100% correct. A lot of honestly, I think some people just go there to get themselves over with chants or playing along with the crowd. And I mean, that's fine. Some people can come for that, but it does seem like sometimes the actual grappling gets rejected by fans if they see too much of it. Do you feel the same about having a good grappling match after a really fast-paced match, or do you not feel the same?
Oh, no, I do. In some ways, you have to be a little bit careful with that kind of stuff, especially if you're following up something that's particularly crazy with a bunch of high spots or weapons or whatever, because people are going to be desensitized to the point to where they're not going to be that sometimes, be that respectful towards a real, the subtleties and slower pace and just these really talented things that these dudes are doing grappling wise and catch wrestling wise. Jiu-jitsu wise, to where they're not necessarily going to be ready for that after they've just watched a ridiculous Young Bucks spot match kind of thing. But I mean, if it's paced right, it works. Like I think the greatest example of that was I was watching back one of the older bowlers. I think the 2015 PWG Battle of Los Angeles. And
I was there.
Yeah, you were. I saw you on screen.
My big head.
And I was like, oh, hey, buddy.
Hey.
And yeah, there were, I think it was either night 2 or 3 or maybe both, but it was great because it just had such a great variety of wrestling. Like you had really, crazy, fast-paced, impressive, athletic feats of craziness type of match. And then you'd have like a match with like a Timothy Thatcher or a Biff Busick or just a Zack Sabre Jr. or whatever, where they're just wrestling such a slower storytelling match of unique subtleties and just grappling talent. And that, because I mean the PWG crowd bloody best, right? But that crowd was like so receptive to everything. So they'd see one crazy style of wrestling, then they'd be like way up for this completely different style of wrestling. And I think that's sort of the way things are going in general in the greater scheme of things. It was actually quite trippy. I went back and watched a a match that I was expecting to be fucking amazing from early 2000s. I didn't even know this match happened. I found it. It was like maybe 2000, 2001 between Steve or William Regal against Dan the Beast 7. And I was so fucking down and excited for this match, and then the shitty indie crowd that it took place before completely ruined it. Like they just booed that shit down and boring and just trying to get himself over and this, that, the other. Everything is bad that you can imagine about early 2000s indie fans.
Yeah.
But that's how I think we're in a different place now to then. Where now, you know, that kind of PWG reaction is more commonplace, and people are, while they do want to see crazy shit, at the same time they're more receptive to your more subtle kind of stuff. It's very cool.
Dude, that 2015 Bola might be my favorite. One match that sticks out for me, seek it out if you haven't seen it, is fucking Pentagon Jr. Not you specifically, anybody listening, but Pentagon Jr. versus Zack Sabre Jr. Oh my
man.
God. That's wrestling candy. Like, it's two
So
styles
fun.
you never imagine to be matched up, but that's the joy of Bola. And
it was
what
great
a
because we got to
tremendous match.
see a very different side of Pentagon Jr. Like he
Yep.
was very proficient in that. There's this awesome Mexican style of submission wrestling called Llave wrestling, which I first heard about from Chris Hero and Skyder and some of those guys. Like you got your dudes that are just amazing at it, like Negra Navarro and Solar and Blue Panther. But yeah, you just got to see Pentagon Jr. break out a bunch of these really fucking wacky, awesome Mexican style submissions. And then Zack Sabre just keep up with him as well. I loved it, man. So good.
And Zach's reactions to the submissions, like the oh shits, and
Yeah.
like his being shocked about what was going on, was just, it was perfect, man. What a great match.
Dude, yeah, so good. I loved it. And then as well, like I think there was the great, there were a bunch of great Chris Hero matches on that whole
Yeah, the one with
tournament.
Jack. The one with Jack was fucking
Oh,
hilarious and
Jack
awesome.
was hilarious all the way through that tournament.
Yeah.
Jack, you talking about motherfuckers that can spit that fire on the fucking promo. Jack Evans, man. Dude's amazing.
Local yokel, by the way. 253 shout out. Back to the Rev Pro show. One quick question I want to ask is El Phantasmo. He's kind of a local guy. He's from Vancouver, British Columbia, and works up at ECCW a lot. Was their champ for I think a good amount of time. Coming up pretty quick. What do you think about him? A good matchup with Will, I felt.
Yeah, he'd been in Rev Pro for pretty much that whole run that I was talking about, where I started watching and then kind of watched all the way through to this Epic Encounter show. And
That's cool.
It was interesting that he was one of those guys that was a bit more low key. Like you could see he did some cool shit, but at the same time, it's like he wasn't. The crowd wasn't being like, "This guy's fucking amazing." It was just like, "Yeah, he is very good." But then I think this match was like his coming out party. He had a match prior on the Cockpit show against, I think, Ospreay, maybe as well. No, it wasn't Ospreay. It was Zack Sabre in the main event. He had a title match with him. No, his first match was a non-title match, and he actually got the win over Zack Sabre Jr. And then, yeah, and that was like crazy upset because like no one had beaten him in that whole run. And then, so straight up afterwards, Zack's like, "All right, do you want your title match? We have to have it right now or not at all?" And he's like, "No." And he's like, "Yes." And then, so they just had the match straight then, immediately after, which Zack won. But I thought it was a really unic, fun way of doing things. Yeah, it was great. But yeah, so I think that proved a lot of him to the fans, and you know, how you're not going to look great against dudes like Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay. Come on, they're like two of the best wrestlers in the world.
For sure.
And then, on this show, he just, hit it out of the park. Really good job.
For sure. And then the main event, I
did want to make special mention before we get to the main event.
Go on.
I also really have been enjoying David Starr a whole
we
heck
skipped
of
that
a
match.
lot. In Rev Pro, he's another one of those guys where he's just been doing awesome shit on a lot of those Cockpit shows and the smaller kind of ones, in addition to the bigger ones. they've got him as a cruiserweight, which I don't know. I don't necessarily look at David Starr and think cruiserweight, but whatever. But he is probably, I reckon, best promo in the business right now. Like, I can't think of anyone else. Like, yeah, so good. And just the banter that he has with the crowd through his matches, dude's great.
Yeah, I had not seen his work until up in NOLA weekend, and the promo shtick and all the nicknames is fucking tremendous. I actually wasn't sure the way he was booked in Rev Pro. Like, he was complaining about a fucking conspiracy against him, and typically that lands you into the heel role where you're complaining, but he seemed to be pretty over. Is he a babyface?
No, he's definitely a heel. On all the other shows, he's a big time heel, but it's weird.
Okay.
On one of the last York Hall shows of 2017, I think, they put this Chapman dude over for the cruiserweight title. Like, he got the big upset, and he got the biggest pop, and everyone loved him. It's like, holy shit, this weird fucker has won the belt. Good for him. But then very quickly thereafter, it's one of those things where the that story of the unexpected underdog kind of thing. Once he actually gets the belt, there's nothing to go.
There's nowhere to go.
Where do you go? And then the crowd kind of has turned on him thereafter, which I think culminated in this match with David Starr, where the crowd was almost being a little bit mean to Chapman in some of this stuff. Even the booker / commentator Andy was in the commentary saying about how legitimately mean he thought the crowd was being to poor Mr. Chapman, which I loved.
Yes. He was a fairly lanky looking goofy guy.
Yeah, but yeah, just seeing how much love they had for him before he got the title to like the disdain that they have for him now. I mean, I don't
That's
know
fucking wrestling, man. That's how
wrestling
wrestling
is.
is.
Where they go from here. Sure is. And yeah, also shout out to that really awesome opener with Shane Strickland and my boy Barooksy on that Rev Pro show. We spoke a little bit about Adam Brooks with what the awesome shit he's been doing in PWG lately, some other American indie stuff, but he has got such a awesome push in Rev Pro over the little while that he's been there. They've got like a undefeated gimmick going on with him, and he's just all that stuff that I was talking about last time with like his promos and talking in the ring and just that oozing confidence. Like, he's got it in spades in his presentation in Rev Pro.
And we talked about earlier about the main eventers wearing trunks. When he was down in NOLA, he was wearing like cutoff shorts, kind of like the thing that the Motor City Machine Guns wear.
Yeah.
Did he switch to trunks recently, or is he going that way now?
That was the first time I'd seen him in trunks, because in all of his Melbourne City wrestling stuff that I'd seen him in, and anywhere else, PWG, he has those Alex Shelley
board shorts almost,
type of things, but like the gear, not shitty shorts, so you can tell they're actually
by no
gear.
means, yeah.
But but yeah, moving up to the trunks. I don't know, hot take, but I personally do think top guys look way more like top guys in trunks. That may just be me. I don't know.
No, I agree 100%. When Punk did it in ROH, I was like, it was a perfect transition. It made sense. He was doing that because he was going to the WWE soon, doing the corporate gimmick, looking like a fucking champion. So yeah, you gotta sometimes change the aesthetic in order to fit the role.
Yeah, for sure. But no, I love that match, and Shane Strickland is crazy talented, and I thought the guys just had such a great chemistry. I want to see them wrestle more. I want to see a series of matches, like a feud. I don't know, but please, PWG and everywhere else, Defy, book that match, please.
I always beg the Defy guys to get these awesome UK talents over, but that airplane ticket price.
That's
so maybe
expensive.
one of these.
Hey,
maybe if Brooks is stateside.
Yeah, once he's over for PWG, work it into the tour.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right. We tried to jump to it earlier, but I wanted
We're
to
ready.
talk Tomohiro Ishii and Keith Lee. Dude, I love the story of this match.
It was
initially
great.
The whole gimmick was that Ishii could not get fucking Keith Lee off his feet, and the way they built to that finally happened was fucking great. But big lads wrestling, man. What a hoss match this was.
Oh, fucking Hoss fight, bro. I loved it. And they actually had their first encounter back on that Global Wars doubleheader that I was talking about from the year prior. Definitely worth checking out on night one of Global Wars at York Hall, Global Wars 2017. I may have enjoyed that match even more than this match, just in terms of telling you how good that match was. But yeah, both guys have such good chemistry. I mean, what else can you say about Keith Lee? We put him over pretty well last show. But yeah, him and Ishii just had this crazy great intensity where like Ishii is the total little fucking stone pit bull that he is, that it's just such a tough guy, will take everything that Keith Lee can throw at him and then some. And yeah, loved it.
Yes, sir. Like I said about a lot of times you see something specific storytelling that is so obvious, but this one was like just like, oh man, him trying to get him over is just such a good way to go about this, honestly. And was it the superplex off the fucking
that was scary. Like off the tippy top rope. I thought his legs were gonna fucking hit the lighting truss.
Yes. Speaking of York Hall, the venue is tremendous. That York Hall is a great place to have wrestling.
Man, I love it. It's that actually, I'm a bit of a stickler for buildings, for like buildings for some reason. Like sometimes I pay more attention to that than the actual wrestling. But York Hall was actually the same venue where ROH's first foray over into the UK scene, back when they had Punk and everybody. They did a show. I think it was in conjunction with FWA, because FWA actually used to run York Hall as well. I remember all of the top UK indie guys at the time, like back when we're talking about Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch. They had awesome stuff on there, and I remember someone jumping off the balcony. But yeah, that always sticks out in my mind about York Hall. And it's had a great part of in the history of the sort of 2000s uprising of that UK indie scene. They were sort of the home base for another really cool promotion back in the day, Real Quality Wrestling, RQW, which was Martin Stone was actually the ace of that one. May have been the owner as well, I'm not sure on that point. But yeah, it's sort of been a constant all the way through IPW UK, and then the successor to IPW UK, which we currently see as Rev Pro. So yeah, very cool building. It's got an awesome balcony sort of all around. It's got that real classy British look to it. It's almost like if you had Street Fighter or Tekken kind of game, and you have these like, you know, venues set in different countries for the side scroller. Like that's exactly what you would expect out of the UK venue, right?
Yeah, it's like fighting in Parliament or some shit.
Yeah. There was like a Evolve show back in the day in New York where they got kicked out of a venue, and then they had the show in a fire department, and there was an actual fire truck in the background with the ring, and I was like, that's exactly what I was thinking on that as well. Yeah, wacky venues are sweet.
Hell yeah. Yeah, there's a place up here that's called, it's like an aqua theater where like they used to do plays and stuff, but they used to have wrestling shows there, and it's like got water all around it, and so the wrestling is all out on this little dock next to water. It's pretty crazy.
That sounds like the WCW where they used to have the shows at what was it, Club Via or something like that down in Florida.
I can always remember fucking Kevin Nash doing the jackknife, ironically enough, into the pool. You remember that?
What a devastating maneuver.
Yeah, he jumps off and grabs his one leg. I originally thought it was a cannonball. Then somebody, that's a jackknife, you idiot. Like, no shit. I should have caught that.
Yeah, I remember him, like the heels taking bumps into water and stuff like that. So,
oh yeah, I heard they were originally told not to go in the pool, and they just said, "Fuck it, we're gonna do it."
And why would you not in the fabulously unorganized environment that was late 90s WC? An amazing
For sure.
time.
Great show you picked out here, by the way. I think this is a good concept that maybe we bring more on a regular basis. Maybe you suggest a show, we watch that bitch together, and then we discuss it on the show.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that, and I think it's a good way to sort of get the vibe of a particular company, and maybe like put it over to people that may not have known that much about it. And it's almost like a grab bag, a sampler, if you will. So we can sort of, put something on to some cool stuff that is going on that they may not have known about before. You can think of us as your worldly tour guides of good and alternative indie wrestling, helping you to
Yes, yes.
navigate the trepid waters that all of the crazy shit that's out there and put you onto the good stuff.
Yes, sir. Speaking of world traveling, you did make mention recently that there is maybe a potential of you coming stateside for Bola due to someone else needing to take a trip. Is that the case?
Oh, indeed, man. So I am trying not to be too excited for this because there is a
Yes.
little bit of a question mark for it.
Of course.
However, I recently worked out with the changed date of Bola rather than being the Labor Day weekend as we normally used to. It actually coincides really fucking well if my lovely girlfriend, she does the roller derby, Courtney. Hi, Courtney.
Is she a jammer?
She is one of the people that kills the jammer.
Oh, sweet.
Which is always a fun role. Yeah, I always
Yes.
get a big pop when she murders someone.
Yes.
But yeah, no, she does the roller derby, and they travel overseas for the playoffs each year. The team's going quite good at the moment. The Sun State Roller Girls, for all of you playing at home. And yeah, the playoffs are either going to be in one of two places. Normally there's three, so it fucks up a bit more, but there's only two this year. So it's either going to be in Spain or in Hotlanta. So,
Oh,
I
man.
mean, and that's like a week after Bola. So how perfect would that be to come on over, have an amazing weekend of Bola, see the whole family once again, and then go over to Atlanta after that.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
that sounds awesome. I got both of them crossed for you. Now I do have a follow-up question that's much needed. Much like wrestling, roller derby people get to pick their own, gimmick name, and typically in roller derby there's some sort of sexual euphemism or something gross. What is Courtney's roller derby name?
Yeah, there are some pretty fun ones out there. Courtney is known as the famed Veruca Salt.
I love it. I'm a fan of the band and the character.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's no bad news there at all. All positive feelings.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, it should be very fun. Fingers crossed on that one. I actually have a funny little tie-in story to do with the roller derby that I just dingled on the bit of the brain just now. So this past week, basically Courtney's derby team knows me as the weird, knows everything there is to know about wrestling kind of guy. If Courtney's talking about him, it's like about me. It's what craziness I've been watching with the wrestling. So they have their training at the local skate venue like 3 times a week. Like it's pretty crazy, pretty intense. And this week, I don't know if you heard, there was a tour of the wrestling over here with some dudes. Christopher Daniels, Dalton Castle was meant to be on the show, couldn't make it. Jay Lethal was meant to be on the show, couldn't make it. The Ryback was on the fucking show. It was ridiculous. I think Seema as well was on the show. Seema of Dragon Gate fame from Japan. A couple of his young boys from the wacky thing that he's doing in Hong Kong at the moment. Yeah, there's some pretty big names on this card. But sad to say, this was one of those cards that was trying to capitalize on the recent sort of, thing of the local scene doing really, really well, MCW doing awesome stuff, International Assault doing awesome stuff, and big crowds for cool shows, basically. But this card was not looking like there were going to be any cool matches. It was basically a lot of awesome guys coming out for a show that no one was very excited about whatsoever. From a company that's been around for a long time, AWF is known as, and they, fair enough to say, they do not have a very good reputation for putting on good wrestling. So yeah, I was questioning this tour from the onset, and they, safe to say, did not do very well in terms of the crowd. I think they had all those dudes on the card. And I think in Melbourne and Sydney and Adelaide, they did like under 100 people. I think
Oh shit.
in Adelaide, they did under 50 people. And for the Brisbane show, I think they struggled to do like 20 people. So quite depressing. I was basically talking about it early in the week to Courtney about how depressed I was about it. And she said, wait, where is it? Turns out they were running the venue in Brisbane. That is their training venue.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so they're running basically Courtney's roller derby training venue on the same day, Sunday, that they actually have training. So she said, whoa, hold up a minute. I'm going to double check because that sounds like they have double booked the venue. Turns out they did.
Wow, that's awesome. But what a small world.
So weird. And turns out they double booked them, so they didn't get to go to training. But then they were talking about it that day at training, and like, wow, fuck, we would have just turned up to train, and there would have been a fucking wrestling ring in the middle of our skating court. Fuck. Thank God for Chris and his wrestling.
Amazing. See, wrestling knowledge does pay off in these freak circumstances. It's amazing.
It sure
I think
does.
I think we all, for the most part, unless you are lucky enough to have the fam that we've developed over time visiting shows, a lot of us in the office that we visit or along with our girlfriends, we're the weird wrestling guy to the rest of the world. You know what I mean? Like everyone at my work knows that I'm the wrestling guy. If something wrestling related comes up, somebody's going to come and talk to me about it.
Yeah, pretty much every workplace that I've had in the last 5 years or more, I'm generally known as the wrestling guy, which is kind of fun. You'll get weird little chats with people that you don't even really know that much, but they know you're the wrestling guy. So they have the wrestling chat in the lunchroom. That's kind of good. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with that as part of my my identity, weird wrestling guy. As long as within the wrestling community, you're not the weird wrestling guy. You know, those sort of
that's
more
a different
over the
degree.
top. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The guys who maybe report to the airport as people are trying to get off their planes. Those guys.
Yeah, the guys that that CM Punk doesn't like very much. Those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, man, I think we're about good, huh? This has been a long program.
Yeah, we've been doing pretty well. Nice little chat. There
Yeah.
was one last thing that I wanted to touch on, which I find a very interesting story. So, I mean, with this UK thing basically blowing up, we talk about the success of Rev Pro,
yes.
we talk about the success of Progress. We have the UK WWE tournament coming up. And I don't know if too many people are crazy knowing all about the ins and outs of this, but this whole UK kind of thing, in a lot of ways, is speculated to be because of the World of Sport ITV taping, which I don't know. Do you know much about the history of World of Sport in the UK in wrestling?
Not that I've ever watched, but being kind of a big nerd and listening to so many podcasts, I've definitely kind of grown familiar. That's like the Big Daddy stuff and that, right?
Yeah. Big Daddy. I mean, Big Daddy was like the bloody worst of it. But I mean, there was some amazing wrestling.
But that was his era, right? You know?
Yeah, for sure. He was
him
like
and,
the Hulk Hogan of it kind of thing.
Johnny Saint and all those guys.
Yeah, Johnny Saint, Jim Breaks, so many great guys. Rollerball Rocco.
That's the name I was trying to think of.
Yeah, I highly recommend anyone check out this stuff. It's like just such a fresh take on wrestling when wrestling was a sportly contest of gentlemen. No punching, I mean, there would be if it's you got a jerk heel that's sneaking one behind the referee, but for the most part, it's just good old gentlemanly grappling, and it's amazing to see. But it was huge back in the day on UK TV, to the point where they did way bigger ratings for that than like WWE ever has over there, because it was just a part of like the cultural institution kind of deal, where it's wherever it was on, I think Sunday afternoons, that kind of thing, everyone would just go home and they watch the wrestling with their nan or whatever, getting dinner ready, and everyone's watching the wrestling as a family. And it was huge. And then, very sadly, it lost its spot on TV in the late '80s, I believe. Late '80s, start of the '90s was kind of like the death of UK wrestling. Because like that was going around the horn full time. You had so many guys with full time employment because of this, and that hour of TV show was a huge part of it. And then yeah, they lost the TV deal, and that was basically when UK wrestling, in and of itself, with this very unique style, just died. And then you had the Dark Ages where they had this weird copycat kind of wrestling where you'd have, I think they call them tribute shows. Have you ever heard of these?
I have indeed.
Yeah, so they just have guys go out there, and this is like UK Kane versus UK Undertaker versus just terrible. Like, how did they get away with this? I don't know, but that's what wrestling in the UK became for a long time. Before you had these pioneers like your Doug Williams, your Jody Flash, your Johnny Storms, who really brought it back. And I think FWA was a big part of that, and then right through till today. But so I think last year they had their first taping and first show on the return to ITV of World of Sport Wrestling. This was very different. They used very different kind of guys. It didn't necessarily have the sportsman-like atmosphere. It was basically a taping put together by TV station honchos kind of deal for more of a generalized audience. And it wasn't bad. You watch it and it's just lighthearted kind of wrestling. I think like some of the top guys they used were like Rampage Brown and Grado and a couple of other different dudes like that, and they had Jim Ross as the commentator. So then, fast forward a bit, there was some bullshit over how the next tapings were going to go, who was going to fund them. For a while, Jeff Jarrett and Global Force Wrestling was actually going to be involved in it and fund those, but then they couldn't get it together. Then they finally have, and that was really that show, that debut show that they had, did about a ridiculous increase in viewers than what Raw would get over there. So, for example, and look up these numbers yourself, but for example, Raw probably does like 300,000. This show did like 1.5 million, just because it's on such a bigger channel over there. That's like, because ITV is just like huge in the UK, and yeah, so they had this crazy success, and then just had a lot of bullshit to try to get it back together, and then it comes across in a lot of ways of WWE trying to cut them off at the legs in every way they can. So from signing Jim Ross back up, and it's not like they've necessarily done a lot with Jim Ross since then, so a lot of people are kind of perceiving it as signing him basically so he can't be the voice of World of Sport, to doing whatever they can to sign up a lot of these more promising UK indie guys, so someone could perceive it in a way to where they just don't want them to bolster this World of Sport reintroduction, and they want that for themselves, or I don't know. Who knows? I don't want to be a conspiracy guy, but it's in the end of the day resulted in a lot of these UK guys getting very interesting contracts, almost like retainers, where some of them have gotten full contracts, but others have just gotten these like retainers where they get a bit of money, and it's basically money so that they don't do the World of Sport tapings or do any shows that WWE has a problem with. So it's quite a weird, interesting kind of thing on who's signed these deals and how limiting those deals were going to be. To start with, they said, no, from what I've heard, just sign them and you can still work wherever you want unless there's a clash. When we have a show on, we'll work for us, but apart from that, work wherever you want. But as things have gone forward, obviously those guys haven't been able to be part of this latest World of Sport tapings. But in addition to that, words come out, possibly all of those guys and those WWE retainers are no longer allowed to work Rev Pro, no longer allowed to work a lot of these other UK companies that aren't on the inside track with WWE, like your Progress Wrestling might be. So it's kind of a really interesting time right now. in terms of who's
What do you
going to
think
be
about
able to
these
work
guys who
where.
are grabbing the contract and taking it up? Like, a lot of these guys want the opportunity to make it on the WWE TV and, live that dream. Whereas, though, taking that time off and not being in front of eye of, other people, that could be detrimental to their overall career.
Yeah, I mean,
Sometimes in wrestling,
I think it would have been amazing for these guys, just in terms of the UK as a whole and the growth of the UK scene. I mean, it's grown ridiculously over the last couple of years, and a lot of people are doing great business. Dudes are getting a lot more bookings than they would have, a couple of years ago. However, if you had been able to taken this magic that's going on in the UK indie scene right now and put that on ITV with that world of sports show and with that crazy exposure, if those guys were on there and then going back to doing the normal shows they're doing, everyone would be having a great time in terms of increased business.
what do you think what is the benefit for them really that they're actually signing on? I mean, if they've had faith in this ITV project, and like you said, there's a strong chance it could have worked out. Why do you think they're choosing to go with the WWE? Do you think it's that whole thing about the dream?
I think so. I mean, to a lot of people, I've heard these contracts referred to as mark contracts, which is a interesting way of looking at it and maybe somewhat accurate depending on who you're talking to. But I mean, you do definitely have a lot of the guys who it's just their dream since they started watching wrestling and they first saw Hulk Hogan or Shawn Michaels or whoever back in the day. Just their dream to be on that TV, so they do what they do. They don't want to piss off WWE. They'll take the what they're given, and it definitely, that amount of money that they were being given is enough to be helpful. Like, it's definitely not enough to live off in and of itself, but it's something that's helpful for a guy that's trying to do this as a full-time thing, to be able to just make things a little bit more comfy with that in addition to his other bookings, yeah, I think for a long time, maybe a lot of guys were thinking, oh, well, we can take this and we can be in with WWE and then we can still work wherever we want anyway. But now it's sort of the reality is coming into it where, oh, hey, all right, maybe this is going to be a bit more limiting than we thought. And I mean, with the UK WWE tournament tapings coming up, yeah, it'll be interesting what happens. Because, I mean, I don't see them doing a full-time touring schedule just with that UK WWE brand. I mean, do you?
Well, one thing about them may actually getting an actual TV deal in the UK, so maybe they have plans to actually do a UK-based show. I can't see them doing that, especially with Vince taking on other projects like, XFL. But I mean, who knows? This guy likes to take chances. It could happen, and. As we talked about a little bit earlier, not on the show, but before we taped, Samoa Joe kind of spoke to a lot of the opinions that people are about them plucking all these high top talent from the indies and how a lot of fans see this as such a negative, but he kind of highlighted the fact that it gives opportunity for these other guys to step up and also gives these guys who deserve to be paid big bucks the opportunity to make that big money. So I definitely could see both sides of the scenario. It's not one of those things where, I mean, you can't just say one or the other is, definitively right. But this kind of happened with the last time with the WWE. They picked for the UK tournament, they picked a bunch of guys. And initially, there was speculation that they wouldn't interfere in any of their other indie dates. And then slowly we learned, that wasn't the case so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely that Joe interview sort of echoed a lot of sentiment of what we've heard. Whenever, a lot of indie guys, they'll get signed up and there's, everyone cries, oh, it's the end of the world for the indies, they signed Ricochet. But, the indies, that's part of the magic of them. It's about finding the next guy after a Ricochet, and a lot of these guys have done all of the cool matches. I mean, maybe not all of them, but a lot of the great stuff that you wanted to see anyway. And it's just great to get a nice breath of fresh air of the next thing that's coming up. I mean, that's what makes this shit exciting to watch. So,
agreed.
I mean, and that's actually has been sort of a positive with the way that those ITV tapings worked out. they ended up having some of your bigger names, like Will Ospreay was actually a key part of a lot of those ITV tapings, because our boy Will Ospreay obviously does not give a fuck about some of those other things, with how much other great stuff that he's got going on in New Japan and the rest of it. To Davey Boy Smith Jr. was a part of it as well. Apparently he had an awesome match with Will Ospreay, which is the feature of some of those episodes. To Grado was on it again. But then a lot of your other guys who may be not getting the big time spotlight on the UK indie scene right now, but then after this, they're going to be over as Rover. So, I mean, maybe it's for the better.
Blessing in disguise.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. Definitely something interesting to keep tabs on, and definitely, interesting to see whether a lot of those guys on that UK tournament, such as your Travis Banks, he's probably the most interesting one to me, whether they are now under one of those WWE deals, or whether they'll be able to continue to work wherever they want in places like Rev Pro. Because I'd be a very sad man if we didn't get any more Travis Banks in Rev Pro.
Yeah, and actually, from seeing my first showing of that recently, I was quite impressed. So yeah, I'd like to keep that up. The guy, I mean, if the guy gets an actual show, gets on NXT, that's a different story altogether. But yeah, Travis is one of those guys where he's going everywhere. He's made a name himself in PWG already, so he's only going up from here. Yeah,
I think if he got a good year or so to become that high-profile indie guy that I think he could be, doing those lot more tours over to the States to some of your high-profile indies that we've got stateside, more stuff in PWG. Yeah.
And the WWE, the way they go about it, they are probably salivating to have like a top New Zealand talent. Like, this is our guy, put over how he's from New Zealand all the time. You know what I mean? It's fucking, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. He,
You're already playing the theme song?
We may have had our first technical snafu, but I mean, maybe that's the world telling us it's time to wrap this baby up,
All right, man. I need a beverage, an adult beverage.
Yeah, me too. I think next time I'm definitely going to have like at least a Bloody Mary in my hand with the daytime recording that it is back home over here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you're literally starting your day and I'm pretty much finishing mine up as we record these shows. So an interesting thing to go on there. You enjoying a coffee, as you said earlier, me enjoying a Red Bull. Not sure why. I need to go to bed soon, but hey. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. This has been the second edition of Grown Men Watch This Shit. And yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. We sure do. Again, I just wanted to give a little bit of love to the guys that help make this dumbness happen. Our boys over at the Social Suplex, part of the Social Suplex podcasting network. We got our dudes over at One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Larder. We got Keeping It Strong Style by my boy Jeremy and Josh Smith. We've got the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, Outsiders Edge Show, hosted by Rance and Carl, and the Wrestling Wash, hosted by Barthab Caleb Conlon. Check it all out over at socialsuplex.com. We've also got our Twitter going ourselves, so starting to get some stuff up there. We'll hopefully have some cool content up for you guys if you'd like to get on that one over at Grown Men Pod. That's the Grown Men Pod. Check that one out. For myself, best place to find the best content that I put online is at Chris Things over at the Instagram. Find some wacky wrestling lowbrow art for yourself there. How about you, Jeremy? Where's the best place?
On both Twitter and on the Instagram at James Vanderbeek. It's spelled Jaims Vanderbeek, all one word. If you need a shirt design, hey, get at me. I'm more than willing to help out.
I highly recommend.
You're a tremendous artist as well yourself, my friend. That's so. I appreciate the compliment coming from you. But yeah, at James Vanderbeek on both Twitter and the Instagram, and yeah, get at us on our Twitter as well. Grown Men Pod.
Grown Men Pod. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a delight to be in your ears once again. We actually have a bit of an official release date going on now, where you can hear us dropping every 2 weeks on Wednesdays. In the
Wednesdays.
America land, it's Thursdays in the Australia land. But yeah, no, it's
right.
good to have some regularity about things, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, I guess we should get out of here.
Yeah,
Thanks for
let's
having me again,
skedaddle.
Chris. Always
Thanks
a
for
pleasure,
having
buddy.
me. Thanks for having me, Mr. Vanderbeek. I'm Chris. For the both of us, I want to thank you for listening once again and let you know that we are grown men and we watch this shit. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Well,